And that segue being goes to a listener question, because when this news broke and I posted this on Twitter, it got a little crazy on my Twitter account. I mean, it got pretty crazy on my Twitter account. And so I was proposed the question from one of our Patreon people, David Cabal. He asked, what do you think if you were going to do some of the other characters? What molds would you use moving forward from that? Now, one thing that I'm going to say right now is, I mean, it looks at first that they want to go with these Titan return molds to have that human form, but I mean, I look at how good the RC is, and it doesn't
Yeah.
have. I mean, imagine if they went with that Titan Returns Hascon RC, it just would have not
Nah.
been the same.
Yeah,
You know,
because the
yeah,
legs would
well,
have been
that's
all
just it. So
weird.
I almost say to myself, imagine if they would have used some of these other characters that we have from the just let's just open it up to what is more or less the modern take of a lot of Transformer molds that exist. Because obviously we're not going to go into old stuff because it wouldn't do the job as well. But what would you use for what specific characters? That's pretty much David Cabal's question from Patreon.
Hmm.
So
Right.
what do you got, Wendell?
Oh, I was still working on the list while we are doing the last segment.
Cool.
But immediately when I thought about it, I was like, we would have to use that Generations lug nut. We have to use it. What would we use it for? And at first I wrote Zangief. Then I was like, we could probably do a Hugo with that. And then I thought about his big fists and the way you kind of fold in the arms to make it a little bit more skinnier. And I was like, you know what? A good Balrog would be good for that Generations lug
That would,
nut. You just
I
paint,
was just thinking that when you with the second you said lug nut, I'm like the big fist. That's the
yeah,
boxing gloves.
you make the big fist the boxing gloves, but then also he's that big, you can make him pick up people, put them in the pile driving position, or throwing them down directly. I think that would be a good any of those characters, a big puncher or a big grappler, basically.
Mm.
Um, I was looking at some of the characters I liked, specifically on the Transformers side, and how they would translate into this new, hopefully, line. I was looking at Generations Rat Trap, and I was thinking, you know what? I think Rat Trap is like a small character, and when I think small, I think El Fuerte because he has that Rey Mysterio Jr. kind of vibe to him as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. You could
So I
do the
think
mask. It's
yeah, I think
true.
you could do the
The
mask
way
on that
that
Rat
the
Trap,
way
or
that
maybe
Rat Trap's head sculpt is, it's very luchador mask if you paint it right.
yeah, exactly. So that's what I was looking at. So I was thinking that would go well. I have Generations Wheeljack as Cody from Final Fight.
The Generations Wheeljack.
Yeah,
Trying to imagine that. So we're talking the prison
because I'm
garb, right?
prison garb or the white tee
And the jeans
and the
from
jeans,
Final
either
Fight.
or. I was thinking about his broad chest.
Oh,
You
okay.
know, that's what I was getting out of there. Um, then now here, this is where I was like looking at the M Bison or Vega in Japan.
Hmm.
You could do Titans Returns, Overlord, or Sky Shadow,
See again,
and
and I
and then you could still do the gimmick that they have here with the toy that they have, where you get your jet and you get your tank.
I would I agree with you. I think that Overlord, you paint that head sculpt there, you
Hmm.
could get a really good Bison out of that.
Yeah.
And that an Overlord as a character is a very Bison-esque kind of character too.
Exactly.
So
So
if
I'm trying to match the mold, maybe the character, and maybe their deal, their specific thing that they have with the character in the toy
mm,
itself. That's what I'm trying to get that little balance there. It's a little bit difficult, but I'm just like spitballing ideas, and I love having these kind of questions where you can just work the gears and
yeah.
just have your
Oh
imagination
man,
go wild.
I have
I got
some
a few more
I got some
if
like
you don't
weird
mind.
ones. Like number one, like I was looking more at the World Warrior characters, aka Street Fighter 2. And so
Mm,
one of them was like I was like, okay, Dhalsim, right? And I was
okay.
thinking of Combiner Wars Ultra Magnus, how he has the extendable arms. Like you can make
Okay.
his
Oh,
arms
okay. Yeah, yeah. I could
you
see
can make
that.
his arm, because the original Ultra Magnus toy had that same gimmick where
Hmm.
because of his transformation his arms extend, right?
Right.
And part of me was also looking at animated long arm you know,
Hmm.
which also kind of had a stretchy gimmick in a sense. His legs could go long or
Oh
short.
yeah, that's true.
So I was kind of going like, how do you work Dhalsim into that? But the problem with I could see in the case of Long Arm, because if you ignore his shockwave side of him, because for people that aren't familiar with the Long Arm toy, Long Arm is not only a triple changer, but he also has two different robot modes. And the thing with Long Arm is his, how do I explain it? His Autobot robot mode, which is like it's not Shockwave, it's a human, but it's a human face, but it has a dot on his forehead. Do you
Ah,
see where
okay,
I'm
I can
getting
see
at here?
why.
And a lot of people are going like, "Oh shit," you know. So if you look at the long arm toy from Animated, human face, dot on the forehead. It's supposed to be the Shockwave face, but it's the dot on the forehead because it's, I forget what it's called in Indian culture, specifically
It
Hinduism.
it
Uh,
has I think has it has from
I
what I've learned over the years, it
apologize
has
for any
very
listeners
different
who I don't know what
things.
this
So
is. And we
I'm
had
not
so many
I'm not
Indian
gonna I'm
friends
not gonna
growing up, so
guess.
it's like, why do we not know this? But anyway, so like he has the dot on his forehead. You could give him like all of Dalsim's colors, and then he has like the Autobot logo that could be swapped into a Decepticon logo. You can make that the skull because he has skulls around his neck that he has,
Yeah.
and again, because of the gimmick of the toy, leg stretch, arm stretch, it's
Yeah.
perfect. It's perfect. Like for it, that like that one right there. What the second I thought of Dulcim, I was like, oh my god, long arm is like a shoe in because just the face, everything just works, and all you have to do is do the paint. And I mean, I was leaning towards Ultra Magnus because he's a more recent mold from that Combiner Wars era, but I was just like, you know what? The animated long arm just works so much better. Another one I
Uh,
was looking at, again, it goes away from generations, but for Zangief, I was looking at Transformers Prime Breakdown.
okay,
And
okay.
that toy is very Zangief. It's very wide chest. Like I could see like Zangief's like furrowed chest hair just
Hmm.
be completely decoed across that. Breakdown has a very Zangief looking kind of face that I'm pretty sure if you would have painted a certain way gives you the beard and the mohawk. You know, it works very well for that. Trust me, like when I saw this, the gears were turning like crazy right away, going like, oh man, you know, like you could do this, you could do that. Um, that was another one. Now, for me, when I was looking at the hot rod one, I was going like with Ken. I was saying, you know what I would have done
Hmm.
because Shoto clones are such a thing in Street Fighter, and like you
Uh,
said it yourself, Shoto clones are just them. They're clones of each other in a lot of ways.
hmm. Hmm.
And I was saying to myself, well, what mold would you use, say, across the span, where it's something where you don't have to retool them so they look all the same? And I was thinking of the Datsun brothers and how
Okay, okay.
because you could do a Ken, you could do a Ryu, you could do a Sean, you could do an Akuma, you know, you could do a
Hmm.
Dan, and as long as you stay within those Datsun brothers, you could have all these different molds that differentiate each other just so slightly, but still be different characters, but still all have the Shoto shape, if you will.
Right.
So like, and there's no rule to it. Prowl could be Ryu. Maybe Ken could be Ryu. Your opinions, your opinions would be different than mine. But Prowl could be
Hmm.
Ryu. Ken could be, Blue Streak, and then Dan or Sean or Akuma could be, what do you call it? Smokescreen. And at the same time, if you do something where, if you can, like, because the thing with that mold specifically, and I'm referring to, like, when I refer to that mold specifically, I'm referring to the either you want to use the Combiner Wars mold that was used for Blue Streak
Right.
and Prowl, which was just a repaint of the Stunticons and stuff like that, or
Hmm.
alternatively, if you want to use the Classics slash Generations Universe 2.0 Prowl mold, depending on which ones you want to use. But I find that whichever one you use, you could always put these new heads on them because there was a lot of different heads used on both these molds, so you get a
Right.
lot of mileage out of it. You get a
Mm.
lot of mileage, specifically when you look more towards that Universe 2.0 Prowl. because there was a lot of that mold got a lot of mileage. It got a lot of like little retools here and there, and you could do Ken, Ryu, and you keep the scale. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? You
Hmm.
keep the scale amongst them so that they could still, it could be Ken. Imagine that's the sad thing is you have the Ken and Ryu from this line that does exist, and Ryu and Ken Ryu's like towering over Ken.
Yeah,
You know what I
exactly. They
mean?
don't keep the same
So it's
scale at
it's
all
it's not like they can't even do the fist bump at the beginning of the fight.
because one's too huge.
Yeah, one is like here you could fist bump my foot. Like
You know what? You know what I just thought since you just mentioned Transformers Prime
go
characters.
ahead.
I thought either E Honda or Rufus from Street Fighter 4. You could put them as Transformers Prime or animated Bulkhead.
Yeah, well that's I
Get your
was
stomach
I
going.
was aiming for E Honda for Prime Bulkhead.
Okay.
I found that I found like I was leaning more towards that because it was just like that works really well in a good streamline kind of way. I find
Hmm.
that animated Bulkhead, unfortunately, he has a really big leader class toy and a kind of
Right.
stumpy Voyager,
Okay.
where the Voyager Bulkhead from Prime is a nice size. It works. It
Okay.
works for because I also kind of look at it from a scale perspective. Like let's say we had all the toys together.
Hmm.
Like E Honda's a big mofo. So is
Yeah, yeah.
so is Zangief. So having Voyager scale toys for them makes sense to a
Hmm.
more deluxe scale Shotos, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. There's so many. There's so many. Like it's just
I want to
like
keep going.
I
I
know I
want to
really
keep
do.
going.
Like I mean I think I'm gonna try to like one more. I guess I could kind of do. Let's see. We'll go with because no one really talked
I,
about him,
I wonder if you're gonna do an obvious one.
which would be an obvious one.
For me, an obvious one, like you just kind of have to do it. You say Guile, and you say any Generations Combiner Starscream, any Seeker in that line,
I
or
agree
you do leader,
because
or you do leader Crash Jetfire.
Guile for a
It's just because I want that F-15
yeah,
as Guile.
he
That's all
turns
I
into the
want.
F-15 that's in the background of his stage.
Any F-15 or any F-15 variant as Guile. That's what I'm
The only
thinking.
problem with Guile is he's known for that wife beater kind of
Hmm.
tank top, and his hair is everything.
Right.
That's the most iconic thing about him. Where you look at that Seeker mold, and nothing really has that.
Mm.
You'd have to like build up. And like when you're talking Guile, this is where again I lean more towards other toy lines. I'm thinking more along the lines of Transformers Robots in Disguise 2.0 Sideswipe that has that Guile French fry haircut going. But
Well,
again, that's
can I just do two more?
go ahead, go ahead.
All right. I thought one that I thought would have been pretty interesting was remember Gen from
Yes.
Street Fighter Alpha, and he has the different
For listeners who
stances.
don't know who Gen was the old man from Street Fighter Alpha 2, I believe he made his no, Street Fighter Alpha 3 he made his debut.
Mm.
And he was also in
And
Street Fighter 1, but yeah.
he also reappears in I think four. I think
Yes, he
yeah he
does.
does.
Yes, he does.
So and I think five. But anywho, I would have given him a Generations triple changer just to represent the different stances he has,
Oh,
kind of
his
thing.
different styles.
Yeah, so he would get like a Springer or a Sandstorm, like
Well,
one or the other,
no, because
whichever triple
you have
changer.
you have so many great Transformers that have beards.
Oh, that's true.
How could you
Like,
like so if you want to do a triple changer, you got to give him like it's something where try you take a triple changer that isn't like huge, which unfortunately
yeah.
that doesn't really exist, but that's something then you need something because again, you know what I would work actually how it would work? Take Titan Returns Scourge's head, right?
Mm-hmm.
Put it
Yeah.
on Broadside's body. And
Okay.
Broadside is very bulky, but it represents Gen's like more broad kind of like I guess Dogi, if you will.
Okay.
Give it that purple. Now he has the beard. Now he has everything. He turns into two modes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that could be the different stances. I don't know, but that's one
And
way. Again, when you have characters with beards,
mm-hmm.
there's so many Transformer characters with beards now that you could take advantage of that.
And then the last two I have, but they're basically the same thing. I would have said you take an oversized Blur or Drift from Generations because their legs are just huge,
Hmm.
or at least the bottom part of their legs are huge, and
They got the
you
Mega
get a
Man
Sagat.
boots.
You put a Sagat as that,
See,
and then you take And then you take a normal size Generations Blur Adrift and you make that add-on.
See, Sagat or Sagat was the hardest one for me to figure out who would work for that because his design is very bare bones.
Yeah.
It's the Muay Thai shorts, the scar, the patch.
And depending on which Street Fighter you're talking about, if you're saying World Warrior Sagat, he's very skinny, and then when they transition into
Alpha.
Alpha, he gets very bulky. He's
Yeah,
very muscular.
it's
He's huge.
that's
He's
a tough that's
towering.
a tough one because it would have to be a mold where you're painting on that eye patch, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It has to have that roundness of Sagat's baldness of like his completely shaved bald head.
Bald. Yeah, bald head.
You got to
Exactly.
have something that has a good flat chest surface that you could then put the deco for a chest.
Of the scar.
You need
Yeah,
like
that's true.
there's certain things you got to hit that say this is Sagat. In the same way, that's why I have a problem with the Ryu because it's so busy.
Hmm.
Like the official Ryu, it's so busy that where at least with the hot rod, because it's more of a simple design, you could see the skin color, the red of the dogi, the Ryu
Yeah,
because
I think also we're not giving that enough credit for for the origin the Tommy Takara stuff is that you're not seeing a lot of the skin tones coming out
yeah,
in
in
the
the
alt
robot
modes.
modes.
In the robot modes, you're actually not seeing them. So that's like a I think a good credit that we should kind of give them a little bit, you
Yeah,
know?
well, you mean in the alt mode specifically?
Yeah, in the alt modes,
Yeah,
yeah.
like you don't see like you see the skin tones in the robot modes, but in the alt modes they're hidden pretty well.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's something we should give them a lot of credit for because it does look it again. I dig it a lot. This is really cool they're doing it, but there's just so many. The only other one that again I'm having an issue with because same thing, Sagat. I can't really think of anyone right now that
Yeah.
really matches that circular head because like again RC is one of those more circular heads and stuff
Hmm.
like that. That then when I do come across something that does kind of have like a perfectly circular head, it doesn't end up on a mold that I could really see being used for Sagat because like I look at like to give an example for Sagat, I
Right,
look
right.
at well if you want to do Sagat, why don't we then use Hot Rod then, right? Hot Rod has that flat chest for the flame. You could do the scar. Hot Rod has
Right.
a rounded head, but there's not
Hmm.
enough surface that could really paint on a good eye patch, you
Okay.
know? And he's not bulky enough really to do Sagat. And then the spoiler kind of just takes away from the whole look already. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like what's going on back there? Okay, you can mistransform it and have the spoiler pointed down, but it's just it. I find that that's about as close as I could get. And then I have the same kind of problem where I'm going, who's Blanca?
Yeah.
You know, who's Blanca? Like, who would be? You need
Yeah.
something like if you went to Gal Geiger with the flurry, where you
Ooh, I just thought eye patch you could do isn't not long arm. What's his name?
which one?
He was in the last Transformers movie and he played the main bad guy. He was an
Oh,
animator. He
you're
was the
talking
bounty
about
hunter.
Lockdown.
Lockdown. Didn't he have a didn't someone in
You know what?
animated have an eye patch?
Actually, I could kind of see Lockdown because also that's a tall figure that has
I
a
just the
pretty.
only problem is that his shoulders aren't broad.
I would, but
That's
animated
the only
lock. I could see animated Lockdown as yeah. Maybe an animated Lockdown is Sagat.
yeah.
That could kind of work. He's tall. He's kind of got that shape to him. He has that
Yeah.
flat chest that you can then paint a scar onto.
Mhm.
There's just enough facial surface for the face to then do the.
I just kind of feel his arms and his
His
top
arms are a little
chest.
thin. Yeah,
His arms are thin and his top part of his chest isn't like
you got to
broad.
do. You
But
have to have
but I
something
mean
where you
I
can.
mean if but I mean you could just say like oh it's World Warrior Sagat. So okay you're doing the
Yeah, it's the
smaller
skinny one.
skinnier. You could do that. You could kind of mask it with that.
And again, going to Blanca, I like Blanca's just something where I'm just going, Optimus Primal, like there's
Yeah.
it's really tough. It's really tough that one because Blanca's head sculpt, it's really determined on that huge mane of hair, and
Yeah.
nothing in Transformers really
What
possesses
was that
that.
ram? What was that ram from
Oh,
Beast Wars?
you're talking
Transmetal
you're
Roof?
talking about Ramulus?
Yes, Transmetal's
I
Ramulus.
guess I don't know. There's like it's the same way how yeah you could probably look at some really old Beast Wars toys and probably have something that works with like animal hair that could be
Yeah.
made into a mane. I
Like
know that like
I'm saying the horns. Oh no, I don't think he really has anything there. But
yeah, that's the
I'm
problem.
just trying.
That's
I'm
a
really
tougher one.
trying.
Maybe someone in the listener, like in the comments, could maybe I'm forgetting something, but I mean, and then we could just go on and on. I mean, Vega with claws. Like there's a few Transformer characters that have claw gimmicks. You could jump from Liger Jack, aka Lio Break, not Lio Breaker. Um, I know he's called Liger Jack in Galaxy Force. I forget his American name. I think it was Lio Breaker. Yeah, it was Lio Breaker. He has a
Hmm.
claw gimmick when you go to the likes of almost a lot of Decepticon characters have claws. Even something like a Beast Wars Dinobot, you could have a
Right.
claw gimmick kind of thing. You jump into uh, I'm trying to think of some others. Hmm. But it's just, Vega's another one where I'm pretty sure if you do a little digging, there'll be an appropriate character that has a claw weapon that could be painted on. And again, he has a mask, so you could just paint the hell out of that
Yeah.
and just give the mask. And the ponytail isn't too much of something that needs to be done. He's a much more simpler design that just relies. Whenever you think of a Street Fighter character, you have to think of like a top 2 to 3 things that define that character from
Yeah.
a design standpoint. With Chung Li, it's her Kyuko ox horns. It's her outfit and it's the legs. With Ken and Ryu, it's the doggies, and in the Ken's case, blonde hair. In Ryu's case, bandana. When you go to Bison, it's the hat. There's always certain things that make those cues. And I think the only one that we're really forgetting is, like, let's say, of the original cast and stuff, because we pretty much covered everyone from the original cast, but like the likes of Cammy, DJ, and Fei Lung. Again, you have that difficulty of Cammy. Just pick a female character like I would look at more.
Prime RC
Well,
maybe.
I was thinking Chromia even, because Chromia
Mm.
has a more flatter head, so they could be kind of painted to look like the beret that Cammy wears.
Okay.
Something that kind of mimics that.
Fei Long. I was thinking maybe Titans Returns Blur, or was that no?
Yeah,
Um,
Titan Return. You need something. You need something that's
like I
skinny,
feel he's
Bruce.
very svelte.
Yeah,
I feel
svelte,
that
skinny.
particular.
You need to have that kind of and Fei Lung. Talk about a simple design. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's Bruce Lee. It's pants and boom. Topless. That's so. It's something that to get it across, you need something that's just as simple. And then
Hmm.
going into DJ, you need a character with also that kind of flat top kind of thing going on. But
Yeah.
otherwise, in the case of DJ, just get the pants, the flat top. There's not much else that defines that design
I feel so
otherwise.
bad because we're forgetting about T Hawk.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Everyone always forgets about T Hawk.
T
We
Hawk.
got
Well, T Hawk is another one of those Voyager characters.
yeah.
But the problem with that is because of his design, the feathers and stuff, what really attributes to have that? Because it's all about the face. You hone in on the face and you go, well, what is going to have T-Hawk's kind of, Indian inspired,
Sto
Native American
sto
inspired from Mexico design?
like Inca Indian like
Yeah,
stoic
it's
looking
not an easy one.
crazy jaw.
That's not, because you look at guys like Bison and Cammy, and you could see how the painting could be done for hats, but the feathers is an extra factor that unfortunately mold wise doesn't really exist within the Transformers, mythos, if you will, and of
Yeah.
head sculpts and stuff that exists. So it's a lot more tougher, that one. But he would be, if he would be, I would put him in that scale. There's very few heavy hitters in the Street Fighter mythos, but that's one of those that go under that Voyager scale or Ultra scale, if you will. I mean, we've been talking forever about this, but
I love it. I love
yeah,
it. I
but
love
it's
it.
but it's a good thing to consider, and anyone who I'm pretty sure could add to this in the comments, any ones they could think of. But I mean, the one again that I'm the most proud of my ideas personally is that Dhalsim. I feel that one, it almost works too well. It's kind of crazy how there's a red dot on the forehead of Long Arm, and Long Arm's arms could stretch and everything. It works too well. It's kind of funny, but that's the one I'm going with.